What if the greatest unsolved mystery in American crime history was finally cracked? For nearly 5 decades, Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance has puzzled everyone, from hardened FBI agents to conspiracy theorists in basement forums. A union boss vanishes in broad daylight, no body, no witnesses. Just a storm of whispers involving mob bosses, political vendettas, and a green Pontiac left cold in a parking lot. This isn't just a crime story, it's a saga woven into the very fabric of American power. Labor wars, mafia ties, and backroom political deals. Hoffa wasn't some obscure figure lost in the archives of Union history. He ran the most powerful labor union in America and made enemies in the highest places, from mob families to the White House. His life was a collision of ambition, loyalty, and danger. And when it all came to a head, he vanished. For years, the leads went nowhere, from rumors of his body in a meat grinder in Detroit to being buried beneath Giant Stadium in New Jersey. Tip lines blew up, landfills were dug, mobsters flipped, nothing stuck. Every breakthrough ended in frustration. Until now, in a shocking twist involving a deathbed confession, a rusting steel drum, and a landfill site hiding in plain sight, law enforcement and forensic scientists might finally be closing in. This isn't wild speculation. The details match long-forgotten FBI files, and it could change how we remember one of America's most infamous cases. So buckle in, because this isn't just about Hoffa. It's about power, silence, betrayal, and maybe, just maybe, justice. The truth is rising from the dirt, and this time, it might finally speak. July 30th, 1975. A hot summer afternoon in Bloomfield Township, just outside Detroit. The Machus Red Fox restaurant sits quietly, unaware it's about to become the epicenter of an enduring American mystery. At 2:15 p.m., Jimmy Hoffa pulls into the parking lot in his green Pontiac. He's there for a sit-down with 2 notorious mob-affiliated figures, Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano and Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone. This wasn't a friendly lunch. Hoffa had been campaigning to regain control of the Teamsters, the powerful union he once led, but his comeback threatened the delicate power balance the mob had cultivated in his absence. Tensions were boiling beneath the surface. He waits. Minutes turn to an hour. Frustrated, Hoffa calls his wife from a nearby payphone and says he's been stood up, promising to be home by 4 p.m. That's the last time anyone ever hears from him. Witnesses later claim they saw Hoffa get into a maroon Lincoln or Mercury with several unidentified men. He didn't appear alarmed. No struggle, no scene, just gone. The next morning, Hoffa's car is found abandoned in the same lot, keys still inside. The FBI jumps into action. It becomes known as the Hoffa case. They canvass neighborhoods, interview mobsters, flip informants. Rumors fly. Did the mob whack him in Detroit and truck his body across state lines? Was he buried in concrete beneath a skyscraper or crushed in an auto compactor? Law enforcement searched everything. Backyards, landfills, construction zones. They even used psychics. The Machus Red Fox became legend, its parking lot transformed into a shrine of speculation. Still, no trace. One thing becomes clear: Hoffa was lured. The meeting was bait. Whoever orchestrated this was methodical, not just in making Hoffa disappear, but in erasing the entire crime. That takes serious muscle and serious planning. What happened in that short window between Hoffa's last call and the sighting in the car is still unknown, but that moment marked the beginning of a legend, the disappearance that would haunt America and defy resolution for decades to come. Before Jimmy Hoffa became a household name, before the mafia whispers and FBI surveillance, he was just a tough kid from the Midwest with a chip on his shoulder and a fire in his gut. Born on Valentine's Day 1913 in Brazil, Indiana, Hoffa's early life was no romance. When his father died young, the family packed up and moved to Detroit. There, Hoffa got a crash course in survival. As a teenager, he worked in a grocery warehouse, unloading trucks and hauling crates for pennies. This was the Great Depression. Millions were out of work, and those who had jobs were often mistreated, underpaid, and expendable. Hoffa saw it all and decided he wouldn't accept it. He wasn't just angry, he was tactical. At just 19, he helped organize a strike that won workers better pay and conditions. It was his first real fight and his first big win. Hoffa realized he had a gift. He could organize, inspire, and negotiate like few others. He climbed quickly through the ranks of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. By the early 1940s, Hoffa was a force. By the 1950s, he was a labor legend. He didn't have a college degree or polished speeches. He had grit, street smarts, and fearlessness. He spoke the language of truckers, and when bosses threatened his ill people, he fought back hard. Under his leadership, the Teamsters became the most powerful union in the country, with over 2 million members. He won contracts that guaranteed pensions, job security, and dignity. To many, Hoffa was a hero, but he made deals to get there. Behind the scenes, Hoffa partnered with organized crime. The mob wanted a piece of the Teamsters' massive pension fund. In return, Hoffa got protection and leverage. To his enemies, he was corrupt. To his allies, he was relentless. Either way, he got results. He was the muscle behind the movement, a working man's warrior with a gangster's edge. And that complexity, part saint, part sinner, is exactly why his story still echoes through history. By the late 1950s, Jimmy Hoffa wasn't just leading the Teamsters. He was commanding a labor empire. With over 2 million members, his union had its hands in nearly every corner of American transportation. Trucks, shipping docks, warehouses. If it moved, Hoffa likely had a say in it. But power, especially unchecked, doesn't come quietly. And Hoffa's rise came with a storm of suspicion. Fueled by shadowy allies and backroom deals, Hoffa knew how to win. He secured powerful contracts, guaranteed pensions, and gave his members real clout. But he also played rough. He appointed loyalists, crushed dissent, and tightened his grip like a mob boss, because, in some ways, that's exactly what he became. At the center of the controversy was the Teamsters' Central States Pension Fund, a financial juggernaut fed by workers' contributions. Instead of playing it safe, Hoffa used the fund to hand out millions in loans to mob-connected businesses, casinos in Vegas, real estate in Florida, hotels in Chicago. The pension fund became a golden faucet for organized crime. In some years, over half the loans issued had clear mob connections. The mafia saw Hoffa as both a partner and a pawn, someone who could move mountains with a phone call or crush enemies with a strike. He helped them gain legitimacy. They gave him muscle when law enforcement turned up the heat. It was a mutually beneficial and deeply dangerous relationship that grew more tangled with every deal. The feds took notice. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, long hesitant to even admit the mafia existed, began tracking Hoffa closely. Wiretaps, informants, surveillance. They wanted to take him down. But the real fireworks came from a young, determined Senate investigator, Robert F. Kennedy. Kennedy and Hoffa hated each other. Their Senate hearings became national theater. Kennedy accused him of corruption and mafia ties. Hoffa fired back with sarcasm and swagger, refusing to flinch. Their rivalry turned personal, bitter, and relentless. By the early 1960s, Hoffa was the most feared and watched union man in America. His enemies were circling, but he didn't back down. He doubled down, and it would soon cost him everything. By 1967, Hoffa's empire had crumbled, at least publicly. He was convicted of jury tampering, mail fraud, and conspiracy. The charges stemmed from bribing jurors in a prior case And the sentence was no slap on the wrist, 13 years in federal prison. For most, that would have been game over, but Hoffa wasn't built like most men. Even behind bars, he plotted. He kept tabs on union politics, stayed in touch with allies, and never stopped angling for a return to power. To him, prison wasn't an end, just an obstacle. The fire never left him, never left him. Enter President Richard Nixon. In 1971, Nixon commuted Hoffa's sentence, but there was a catch. Hoffa was barred from participating in any union activity until 1980. It was a clause aimed at neutering his influence, keeping him politically silenced for almost a decade. But Hoffa, he had other plans. The day he walked free, Hoffa hit the ground running. He challenged the restriction in court, gave press conferences, and began rallying support. His goal was clear: take back the Teamsters. But the labor world had changed. During his absence, new players, tougher, colder, and more connected to organized crime, had taken control. Not everyone was thrilled about Hoffa's comeback. Mobsters who'd benefited from his downfall didn't want him stirring up old alliances, digging into past deals, or disrupting their grip on union power. Hoffa had become a liability, and worse, he wasn't backing down. This wasn't just a comeback attempt. It was a declaration of war on the very forces that replaced him. Hoffa believed he had earned his power and would die fighting to reclaim it. Tragically, that may be exactly what happened. Because just 4 years after walking out of prison, Hoffa stepped into a parking lot and never came back. No body, no crime scene, no confession. In the wake of Jimmy Hoffa's vanishing, what followed wasn't clarity, it was chaos. For nearly 5 decades, his disappearance has become the holy grail of American true crime. Everyone's got a theory, and some of them are stranger than fiction. One of the most famous? That Hoffa was buried beneath Giant Stadium in New Jersey, the home of the NFL's Giants and Jets. The idea he was killed in Detroit, driven cross-country, and entombed in concrete during the stadium's construction. It was a theory so popular, it made its way into movies, late-night comedy, and even guided urban legend tours. Then there's the car compactor theory. The story goes that Hoffa was murdered and taken to a mob-controlled junkyard. His body was thrown into a car, crushed into a metal cube, and shipped off with the rest of the scrap. Brutal, efficient, and untraceable. No body, no evidence, no trace. Others believe he was cremated in a mob-connected funeral home, or dumped into a swamp, or dropped into one of the Great Lakes. Some claim his remains were burned in a trash incinerator, the ultimate vanishing act. The variations are endless, but all have one thing in common. They sound like something the mob would do. The FBI never stopped looking. They've searched fields, landfills, garages, and construction sites. They've interrogated mobsters, flipped informants, and even pursued leads from psychics. One dig site involved tearing up a horse farm in Michigan. Another focused on a landfill near Detroit. The government followed dozens of tips and found nothing. And yet, the case never faded. It became bigger than evidence, bigger than facts. Hoffa had vanished so completely, it almost felt mythological. The mystery became a mirror, reflecting America's obsession with power, crime, and conspiracies. Books were written. Documentaries aired. Even Martin Scorsese made The Irishman about the man who claimed to kill Hoffa. But still, nothing definitive. Theories piled up. Leads ran dry. And the parking lot at the Machus Red Fox became not just the scene of a crime, but a symbol of a truth no one could prove. For decades, Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance felt like a cold case frozen in time. Investigators came and went. Tips dried up. Theories grew wild and wide. But then, in 2020, a stunning revelation jolted the investigation back to life. A deathbed confession that reignited hope, suspicion, and headlines. And this time, it wasn't just talk. The FBI listened. It all started with Frank Coppola, the son of a New Jersey landfill worker named Paul Coppola. Before he died, Frank claimed his father had made a chilling confession, that he was ordered by mob contacts to help bury Hoffa's body in a steel drum beneath the PJP landfill in Jersey City, not far from the Pulaski Skyway. The same gritty, industrial zone immortalized in shows like The Sopranos. Frank didn't just talk, he sketched a map, named names, identified a specific section of the site, an area that had once been untouched by bulldozers. Unlike previous tips, this one came with verifiable details, timelines, connections, physical descriptions, all of which matched previously sealed FBI reports. That's why this lead hit differently. The FBI took it seriously. Teams from Detroit and Newark launched a quiet, coordinated investigation. They reviewed the map, used ground-penetrating radar, and analyzed the soil. Reports confirmed something metallic buried exactly where Coppola described. A steel drum. Anticipation exploded. Could this finally be the moment? The break that solved the mystery once and for all. But then, silence, no press release, no public findings, no confirmation or denial. The contents of the drum, if it was even excavated, remained classified. To the public, the trail went cold. Again. Still, this twist felt more grounded than any before. Unlike vague claims or mob folklore, Coppola's confession provided actionable data and potential physical evidence. The level of precision was unprecedented, so the question lingers. Is Hoffa buried just feet beneath Jersey concrete? Could decades of mystery end in a rusted barrel no one dared open? Coppola's words gave something rare in this case, not just a lead, but real hope. Proof perhaps that the truth was never lost, just waiting to be unearthed. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance isn't just a story, it's a legend, a ghost story told with cement trucks and pension funds, with mobsters and FBI agents, with politics, betrayal and ambition, almost 50 years. Later, his name still sends chills through history books and raises eyebrows in union halls. To understand Hoffa's legacy, you have to accept the contradictions. He was a working-class hero and a suspected criminal, a man who fought for labor rights but may have made deals with mob bosses in smoky backrooms. To some, he was a voice for the forgotten. To others, a corrupt manipulator with blood on his hands. But here's the truth. Hoffa mattered. He mattered to millions of truckers who got pensions and protection. He mattered to presidents who feared his influence. And he mattered to gangsters who wanted his power. His presence shaped policies. His absence reshaped history. When he vanished, it didn't just leave a mystery. It left a vacuum. And in that empty space, America poured every fear it had about corruption, violence, and the price of power. His disappearance became more than a crime. It became a metaphor, a cautionary tale, a myth that refuses to die. What makes Hoffa's story so gripping isn't just how he vanished. It's why. Who stood to gain? Who needed him silenced? And why even decades later is no one willing to speak clearly? That silence is deafening, and it's why the case still burns like an open wound in America's criminal memory. Even now, the smallest headline about a new lead makes waves. Maybe it's because we want closure. Maybe it's because we can't resist a riddle with high stakes. Or maybe we just need to believe that even the deepest secrets can't stay buried forever. That the truth, no matter how delayed, will one day surface. Jimmy Hoffa's story is about power, how it's won, how it's lost, and what people are willing to do to protect it. And as new evidence surfaces, we might finally be closing in on the answer to the question that's haunted America for generations. If this video pulled you into the mystery, don't forget to like it, comment your favorite theory, and subscribe, because more secrets are waiting to be uncovered.